participate in it with us. And the A-APRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass Pan-African political party, which is based in Africa. And if you had any doubt about that, all you would have to do is watch our African Liberation Day webinar from Friday. You can watch it on the A-APRP page on YouTube. And without question, the work of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party is based in Africa. That's not just some wishful thinking on our part. That's not what we just hope will happen in our dreams. This is a reality that reflects the growth and the continued strength of our worldwide revolutionary Pan-African movement. And the APRP, again, is one of the organizations that is fighting for this mass, independent, revolutionary, Pan-African consciousness and work to bring about Pan-Africanism, which we define as one unified socialist Africa. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. And this program is sponsored each week by myself and Shakura. And because we had African Liberation Day in Oakland, she is here with me today. So to get us started, I will abandon my seat and turn it over to Shakura.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Greetings, everyone. Hoping you all are safe, healthy, and well. Happy African Liberation Day week, as well as many, many, many continued events that we have continued to celebrate. And so thank you so much, Comrade Ajamu. So we start, of course, by acknowledging just the relevance of African Liberation Day. Hopefully you had a chance to check out our international webinar. If not, you can definitely visit the African Liberation Day website to check that out. And even if you were able to go to an in-person African Liberation Day event, I hope that you were able to take away some key points. What I want to highlight for today's seminar is that this particular day is really an opportunity for us to be reminded of why it's important for us to organize and to be independent of the colonizers' ideologies, of the colonizers' ways of thinking, operating, functioning, all of those things, because African Liberation Day gives us an opportunity, not just as African people, because again, if you watched the webinar or if you went to an in-person event, you were able to see that we collectively invited several other organizations to be represented on panels, or maybe they were represented with the AAWRU, also known as the All African Women's Revolutionary Union panel. We had recipients from organizations, and even organizations that were recipients of awards at African Liberation Day. And so my point I'm making is not all of those organizations were with African people. We had the American Indian Movement. We had several organizations that represented occupied Palestine. We had organizations that represented different socialist parties throughout the US. And so the point I'm making is African Liberation Day is an opportunity for African people to unchain ourselves, if you will, pun intended, from the colonial control. But it's also an opportunity for us to really acknowledge just how devastating colonialism and oppression has been for other colonized people, so that we can find a way to support them in being uncolonized, just as they are supporting us. There's an intention behind why we invited all those different organizations to be speakers at this African Liberation Day event. And mark my words, just as we invited them to speak at ALD, they have invited us for years to come. That's where the relationship comes from. That's where it comes from, is this constant understanding that we have always been with one another, and that their struggle is our struggle is their struggle. This is also why that was the theme for this year, and for many more years to come. It's always been the same struggle. And so we talk about the importance of African Liberation Day because really any African person who descends from the African nation is African. Thank you, Kwame Nkrumah. And so African Liberation Day should mean to African people the same weight of relevance, the same weight of being significant, the same weight of something that is so important. If you were to measure Christmas to Christians, or if you were to measure any of these colonial holidays, such as Independence Day, to some of the colonists and some of the oppressors that exist on stolen land here in the Americas today. And so just thinking about that, if you did not tune into the webinar, if you did not go to an in-person event, and if you are African, this is really an opportunity for you to unchain yourself from the typical ways that the colonial rule has had control over you. African Liberation Day truly is an opportunity for you to connect with your political education and to be reminded of just how much work needs to be done so that Africa can be free. And if Africa is free, then that allows African people to be in control of the resources that are being produced and created from the continent. If we're in control of the resources that are produced and created, that's going to impact how people treat us, right? So you're not going to have the same criminality that's being exposed to now. If you walk into a store and people are criminalizing you, you're not going to have the same DWB, driving while African or driving while Black. All of those things are going to start to go away because people are going to be forced to treat us differently, because we will be in a very strong means of control, because we get to determine how our products and our resources are used, how they're spent, how they're sold. And for a lot of the world, they rely heavily on those products. We've talked to you before about the coltan, right? We've talked to you about how it comes from the Congo and it's used to produce these batteries that we use in the devices we have, whether it be our cell phone, and in some cases, even in these electric cars that we drive, right? We've talked to you about the rubber that comes from the rubber trees. We've talked to you about the gold. We've talked to you about the diamonds, the cacao that comes from Ghana. I mean, you have all these different resources that come from Africa, which makes it the richest continent in the world. The richest continent in the world. I learned yesterday when Comrade Ajamu was speaking at African Liberation Day in Oakland that some of the highest percentages of gasoline come from Nigeria. And so just thinking more about like how the world is completely dependent on Africa, completely dependent, because we need gasoline, we need rubber, we need coltan, we need all these different minerals that I didn't even mention that are necessary for us to survive in this world, right? And so just thinking more about that, we have to understand that in order for us to unchain ourselves from colonial rule, that means that we as African people and you as a colonized person or an oppressed person, that means you need to understand what your institutions need to look like. Because if you are unchaining yourself from colonial rule, then that means you understand that you shouldn't really be celebrating the same institutions that the oppressor is celebrating that has control and rule over you. That means you shouldn't be honoring, you shouldn't be recognizing, you should not be acknowledging some of the same institutions that the oppressor uses to exploit you, that the oppressor uses to dehumanize you, that the oppressor uses to devalue you and to make it so that you are insignificant and you do not exist. That's what the 4th of July means to me. That's what the 4th of July means to this organization with the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And Comrade Ajamu also said yesterday at African Liberation Day, if you call yourself an American, whether you're African or not, but he was giving the example of Africans that consider themselves Americans. And he said, if you call yourself African American, what you're doing is you're taking responsibility for what America has done. And I thought that was so profound. That means you are accepting the trauma that this country has put on the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. That means you're accepting the dehumanization that this country consented to of African enslaved women and femme presenting people who were exploited and were raped and tortured with their bodies on the plantations every single day. They were experimented on to the fact that obstetrics gynecology is not what it is without those experimentations today. We think about Henrietta Lacks, and because of her cells we were able to create so many medical treatment options, including creating penicillin, which has been used for so many diseases to cure them. But yet she still died of cervical cancer. And so many African femme presenting folks are still getting sick with these cancers or other issues because their bodies are not being valued. We think about the bombing that's taking place in occupied Palestine, and how not only is it killing thousands of people, but we talk about how the bombs have chemicals in them. So if a person is not dead from the bomb, they might still inhale that chemical. And let's say they're carrying a child. Well, now that child is being exposed to those chemicals as well. I remember Comrade Ajamu mentioning that when all the bombs were taking place in the Middle East, when America was in war, they were dropping bombs and it was making the breast milk toxic. And so for parents that were giving their children human milk, they were transmitting those toxic chemicals to their babies because they've inhaled it, it's in their body, and now they're giving it back. And you can't really extract toxicity out of your body. I don't think it works like that. Eventually, you'll just die of toxicity yourself along with your child. And so just thinking more about that, thinking about how harmful this country has been for so many people, thinking about how America has been in cahoots with Israel and has done great damage to every single colonized person, thinking about how America has been in cahoots with Europe and done great damage to other groups. I'm thinking of our comrades that are identifying with India or any part of Asia in that regard. I'm thinking of our comrades in Ireland who were colonized by the British. I mean, we could go on and on. And so you have to ask yourself, is that an institution that you want to be a part of? And is that an identity that you want to be a part of? Because if you're not consenting to the fact that America has done all these things and you believe those things to be wrong, you believe those things to be unjust, you believe those things to be truly distasteful and not something that you personally would agree with. I'm talking about bombing the Black Panther Party offices. I'm talking about bombing Malcolm X's house. I mean, America is responsible for all these things, right? America is responsible for the fact that Assata Shakur escaped to go to Cuba because they wanted to kill her for something she did not do, right? And they still want to kill her. They still want her to be dead. And so if you're not taking responsibility for all those things, then that means you should not accept the fact that you're an American. Because in order to not take responsibility means that you understand that those things were unjust, those things were wrong, those things were not accurate and should not have taken place. They were inhumane, and no human should have to exist under those conditions. And so by that definition, that means that you're now understanding that if you don't identify as an American because you're not taking responsibility for all the trauma and the harm that this country has put on other people, other classes of people, other races of people, other marginalized genders and non-binary people, then that means that you should not be participating in the same institutions that this country celebrates. To me, A plus B should equal C if that's how we're thinking about that. It should not equal the number 7. A plus B should not equal number 7, if you're following my logic, because really what we're saying is, if you identify as American, then yeah, you would celebrate Independence Day. Because by your logic, you would celebrate the day that this country formed its independence. But you also understand that a country can't be independent if it's stolen land from somebody else, and has also killed mass numbers of indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, has raped and has stolen their land, right? Has given them diseases, right? On blankets and whatnot. And so just thinking more about that, this is why we need to think more critically. This is why we need to increase our political education. We need to think more critically about the choices we're making, because really, you should not be celebrating those institutions, because those same institutions are celebrating the fact that you are oppressed. Those same institutions are exploiting you. Those same institutions are exploiting your income, your resources, your money. Those same institutions don't even see you. They see the wallet or the purse that you carry, because that's what matters to them, is how much profit they can make off of you. That's what matters to them. That's all that has ever mattered to them. Your health doesn't matter to them. Your income instability doesn't matter to them. Your ability to be a good parent doesn't matter to them. Your ability to be a good animal parent does not matter to them. How long you live on this earth doesn't matter. None of that matters to them. How stressed you are, your mental health, none of that matters to the capitalist industry, to the imperialist industry. None of that matters to that. All that matters is how you can be exploited so that their resources can profit and expand and grow at the extent of you. Even if that means your livelihood, your wellness, your outcomes, any of those things are insignificant, they're threatened, whatever that looks like. And so, again, we're not celebrating institutions that are not promoting the ideologies that we believe in. So if you're listening to this seminar, it's probably because you believe in truth and justice. It probably means that you believe in what it means to have true social justice. It probably means that you believe in humanity. It probably means that you believe in socialism. It probably means that you believe in collectivism. And if that is the case, then we should be celebrating institutions that promote those same ideologies. It doesn't make sense to me that you would celebrate a holiday such as Unthanksgiving and you're talking about collectivism when there's nothing collectivist about that day. It's literally a day where it's sorrow, it's grief, it's mourning, it's painful. It's a horrible day. And all I think about is the indigenous people all day when that day happens. And I try to do a libation. I try to go to indigenous soil and I just stand there and I meditate and I try to pay my respects because that's not a day that we should be enjoying as a society. That's not an institution we should be encouraging to celebrate. And we shouldn't be teaching our children to celebrate it unless we're giving them the true background of what that day represents. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Comrade Ajamu, but remember that, oh, sorry, I have one more slide. My apologies, you all. Remember that as we continue on, we can think more about what these institutions mean for us, what that looks like for us, and how we're able to continue to celebrate the institutions that really make sense for us to celebrate. So unchaining ourselves from what's going on with the US and understanding that we're in a space where we're in a space to really celebrate African Liberation Day because it is an institution that represents humanity, that represents love, and that represents truth and justice. So we apologize, family. This is Comrade Ajamu's slide, so I'm going to pass it back over to him and join an organization that's working for justice.
Ashe, ashe, ashe. Sorry about the confusion. We're tired here. We've been working all every day, but we're still strong and going on. So what we want to do, you all, is we want to talk about what actually happened with African Liberation Day this weekend. Like what goes on? You hear us say it all the time, but what actually were the tangible things that took place? So the All African People's Revolutionary Party organized African Liberation Day commemorations all throughout Africa this weekend. First, we started with our international webcast on Friday. And some of you hopefully participated in that. And if you didn't, you can watch it. But mostly yesterday, since May 25th is the actual day of African Liberation Day, we had commemorations that we helped organize and in many cases organized on our own all over the world. So in Southern Africa, we had on the ground commemorations in Azania, or what you call by the colonial name South Africa. We had them in Kenya. We had them in Zambia. And then we also had them in West Africa, in Ghana, Senegal, Burkina Faso. And we also supported ALD activities in Sierra Leone and other places. And then we also, in Guinea-Bissau as well, we organized there as well. And then we had commemorations in Europe. We had them in Germany, and we had one in London, England, that I know of. There may have been more. We had commemoration in Toronto, Canada, and we had them in several cities throughout the US. I believe we had a commemoration in the Virgin Islands as well. And we had a commemoration in Baltimore, Maryland, in the state of Massachusetts here in the United States of America. We had another on-the-ground commemoration in Orlando, Florida, and out here in Oakland, California. And with all of those commemorations, we had the same theme, same struggle: smash settler colonialism in occupied Palestine, Africa, the Americas, and Oceania. And we explained, if you didn't know, that Oceania are the territories between Asia and the Americas. So you're talking about places like Hawaii and Fiji Islands and Australia. Those are all territories that are in Oceania. And those are all places that have been victimized by settler colonialism. So this is what we did, is we, in multiple languages, right? We had African Liberation Days that we're doing this weekend in English, in Spanish, in Portuguese, in French, in Creole, in Swahili, in various languages around the world, but the theme is still the same. The focus is still the same. And that focus is that when the European capitalists colonized Palestine, that makes the rest of us weaker, even though we're not Palestinian. And so we have to recognize that. That was the point of our theme, is to engage in a worldwide call to action for us to recognize that. So as Shakur mentioned, at African Liberation Days everywhere, and I, was present at the one here in Oakland. So we had representatives from El Partido de Raza Unida who opened up our program and talked about the Americas being colonized by settler colonialists. We had representatives from the Arab Resource Organizing Center that talked about the Palestinian struggle for just liberation. We had representatives from other African organizations like the Haiti Action Committee and the African People's Socialist Party and the Black Alliance for Peace. And we had all of those organizations speak to the theme that we have this year. The point being that it's important that we ratchet up our level of consciousness, because a lot of Africans are running around here talking about, we don't need to be concerned about the Palestinian struggle. And that's the same, imagine that, like that's the same thing as coming to your house and somebody's breaking in your neighbor's house and stealing everything out of your neighbor's house and terrorizing your neighbors, beating them, shooting them, killing them. And you're going in your house next door and you're saying, well, that's them. That's not my problem. In fact, I had last week, those neighbors parked in my driveway. So I'm glad that somebody's giving them terror. I'm not even going to worry about that. I mean, that would be an absolutely absurd approach. But when I say it, I know a lot of you can identify with it, because a lot of people actually think in that really limited way. Clearly, if someone's doing that in the house next door to you, you're not safe. And in this instance, that's just an analogy, but in real life, that's exactly what's happening. Is the same international capitalist and imperialist thugs led by the United States of America, Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, Australia, the Zionist state of Israel, all of those filthy crooks and thug nations, they are the ones who are responsible for the theft of Palestinian land and the continued subjugation of the Palestinian people. And they have a worldwide network. And that network is when they created the Balfour Declaration with the apartheid state of South Africa in 1917, they began negotiating this scheme where they would finance the Zionist movement by stealing African diamonds and having them polished in the Zionist state of Israel. And if you think that's insane, then you should look up today in 2024, the Zionist state of Israel produces 40% of the polished diamonds on the world market. So you're listening to me, or somebody that's walking around here with diamonds on saying, well, he sounds crazy. No, you're the one that's insane, because this is an international network that these people are engaging in. So they know that when they went to the when the Zionist state, when the apartheid state of former apartheid state of South Africa was criticized in the 1940s with the creation of the United Nations, the people who were the architects of that Zionist system told the United Nations, we got the model from how the U.S. has treated the indigenous people. So again, it's an international network. And they are doing the same thing everywhere to control the human and material resources of the people of Palestine, the human and material resources of our people at home in Africa, the human and material resources of the people of Oceania, the human and material resources of the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, from Alaska all the way down to Chile, a worldwide network of these capitalist, imperialist thugs doing that. So if we want to win, our message this weekend and African Liberation Day is we have to create a worldwide network that's fighting to seize power from these crooks, thugs, criminals, and thieves. That's what we're doing with the work that we do. And that's important to understand, because in the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and I said this yesterday at the program, we don't have buildings everywhere. We don't have headquarters offices everywhere. We don't have brick and mortar. We don't have that. We don't have, in Africa, we have a lot of this, but in a lot of places, we don't necessarily have gardens where we're giving food to people. That's great work for the organizations that do that. That's a wonderful thing. That's not the priority of our work. We don't have that. We have schools all around the world. I've helped establish a few of them, and worked in a number of them in Africa and throughout this cesspool empire and everywhere else. But that right now, even though we're doing that in many places, there's a school established in Sierra Leone. There's one operational in Burkina Faso. There's several in Ghana that I've worked with, Tanzania, other places. But that's not the first thing that the All African People's Revolutionary Party is doing. The first thing that we are doing is the work that I've just described to you, creating those ties all over the African world so that we're all on the same page. We're all doing the same preparatory work to create this worldwide fighting force that can ride right up against imperialism, knock them in the jaw, and seize the power that we have. And I don't, honestly and humbly, I'll say this, I don't see anyone else doing this on the level that we're doing it right now, all around the African world. I don't see anyone else. I wish there were several organizations doing it better than us, because I believe the reason why I'm here is I believe this is the most important thing that we can do as a people. And people sleep on that all the time because we don't really understand the power of unity. We live in these capitalist societies, and so we've been trained to think in the capitalist mindset. So we think, well, if I just do something over here with 3 or 4 people, that's more important than what anyone else is doing. Yeah, what you're doing is important. Nobody's trying to take that from you. If you feed one person, that's a very important and valuable act. But don't sleep on the fact that we are bringing African people all over the world together. And if you doubt that, all you have to do is look at African Liberation Day. It's a clear example of that, a clear example of that. And I would argue doing that work is the most important thing that African people need to be doing right now. The most important thing that we need to be doing. All people hearing this, always talking about our people need to unify. Well, we're not just talking about that, we're doing it. We're doing that work. So if you value African unity, if you value quote unquote Black unity, you should love the All African People's Revolutionary Party. So that's how we use African Liberation Day. That's what's been happening this weekend. And not only that, again, we highlight the struggles of other oppressed communities. So no other people outside of the Palestinian community are doing more widespread education on the Palestinian situation than the African Liberation Movement. I can say that with confidence. Of course, everybody's working. I'm not saying nobody's doing anything except us. Don't lie and say that's what we said on this program. That's not what we said. What we're saying is that for decades, we have been raising this question and the necessity for us to see the struggle as the same struggle. And we continue to do it. We didn't just start doing this on October 7th. We didn't just start doing this last year or 5 years ago. We have been doing this for 50 years now as an African liberation organization. And we have been doing this. Nobody else has been saying the Americas belong to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere more than we have. More than we have. We've influenced, in fact, I'm going to be arrogant for a moment. We have influenced that line to be pushed today, that the Americas belong to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. So this is the work that we're doing. So the fact that we have all these pro-Palestinian encampments on all these college campuses happening all over the world, there's no way in hell you can tell us in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party that our work has not contributed to that consciousness, because we were talking about from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, when most of these people today were scared to even say the word Palestine. And that's an absolute fact. And all you got to do is go back and look at Kwame Ture videos from 25, 30, 35 years ago. Nobody else was talking about this like that. And we're not bragging, but we have to talk about the work that we do, because most people are confused and don't understand it, and actually will open their mouths to say, well, they ain't doing nothing. Well, no, you're not thinking. That's the problem. We're certainly doing work. Your brain can't grasp and comprehend the work that we're doing. So that's what African Liberation Day represents, you all. And of course, we use it as a recruitment tool for the A-APRP. We make a clarion call for people to join the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. And I know myself here, I'll be doing orientations this next week. And I know people all over the African world will be doing that, because that's how we use African Liberation Day. And we also strengthen our relationships with our sibling African parties and alliance organizations. We strengthen our relationships with organizations on the African continent so that we can be one. We strengthen our relationships with Arab organizations and indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere organizations so that we can be one. Yesterday here in Oakland, we had participation from an organization from India, an anti-imperialist organization from India. And they participated on the panel. I forgot to mention them, but yes, they participated on the panel as well. And we talked afterwards, and we made commitments so that we can continue to work with. This is how we're going to get free. Well, a lot of folks, are running around talking about Black people can't rely on nobody else, and ain't nobody doing nothing. Ain't nobody even listening to you say that, except the two people that are only listening to you because they're relying on you for gas money or for you to buy the next weed bag or whatever it is, while you're on that small, insignificant, small brain level. We're making ties all over the damn world to build a liberation movement. So if you want to know, what does the All-African People's Revolutionary Party do? What is African Liberation Day about? Just rewind this video and you'll see that this is the work. And time will tell. Time will be the best history. As Fidel Castro said, history is the best teacher. It will show you that the work that we're doing will have significance. So the next steps is, after the events of this weekend, that you all is where the real work begins. Kwame Ture said it correctly. African Liberation Day for the A-APRP is simply a tool to organize our people. So after the events, for a lot of people, after you go to an event, and you go get some food, get itis, fall asleep, start snoring, and the next day you're back to the regular day-to-day capitalist foolishness that dominates your life. You don't have anything to do with any movement work or any capacity building work or anything like that. Well, that's not how we function in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. The events happen. Now we know the real work continues. Now we have to follow up with the people who said they wanted to join. We have to organize orientation meetings with the people. We have to to get the materials to the meeting. We have to organize work study groups for the new people that join. We have to go to those meetings to help them get started. We have to answer questions for them. We have to give people rides. We have to make sure they have food, make sure they understand how to conduct those meetings. It's a lot of work that goes into this. But this is why we are here, because we are committed to doing that work. So that's why we do these events, and then now the real work in our areas begins. And we're very busy with doing those works. And while we're doing that, we continue to do the work to maintain and build these relationships that African Liberation Day helped us sustain, and sometimes introduce, and sometimes sustain, and sometimes, in all cases, develop. And then we consolidate the people that we're working to recruit. And by doing that, we expand our capacity to do even more work. So that's what African Liberation Day is. And this is what the next steps for African Liberation Day look like. It's what they will always look like. So the takeaways here, these are the things that we want you to think about when you think about this. Because, you know, this is a problem, you all, with this capitalist society, is that, you know, the way it's set up right now, like, you can meet somebody and you can say all kind of stuff about what you're doing, and nobody will do any research. You know, it's very easy. You know, I talk to people all the time, and they always tell me, well, what are you doing? You're not doing anything. You know, I did this interview for the comrades in Burkina Faso in the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and through Africa Stream, and they interviewed me, and it's gotten a lot of play. You know, thousands of people have seen it, and a lot of good comrades and people reached out to me. Yeah, I saw you on Africa Stream. And I've also had a lot of enemies reach out. You know, they're like, well, what the hell are you doing? And the reason why that happens, you all, is that this is a capitalist dominated world we live in. So people see everything through an individualistic perspective. So because you do nothing but sit on your ass all day, every day, and sit behind your computer and type, your perception is that everybody is like you. It is only doing what you're doing, not a damn thing. So when you see someone talking like you saw me on Africa Stream, you think, well, I must be like you, just expressing an individualistic, idealistic opinion and don't have any basis behind it. So, you know, people reaching out to me saying, well, you're an idiot. You don't know anything about what's happening in the world. Now, I might be a lot of things, but idiot is not one of them. I might be a lot of things, but not knowing what's going on in the world is definitely not a problem that I have. But I get it, because these people have no context. They're just sitting in a little dark hovel, praying that their internet doesn't get turned off, typing on a computer, and just trying to make themselves feel better about their miserable lives under a decadent capitalist system. We get it. It has to be that, because it certainly isn't the analysis that we're putting out. It's rock solid, ironclad proof, positive, of what's happening in the world. So when I'm on Africa Stream and I'm talking about we should support the Palestinian struggle, objectively true, we should support it because it helps us in our struggle. And you respond by saying, well, the Arab store on the corner didn't treat me right, so I don't agree with you. That tells us, who have experience doing this work, that you're sitting in your house, if you even got a house, you're sitting in your little hovel, and you don't really understand what's going on out here in the movement for forward human progress. Because if you did, you couldn't talk that way. You would know better. You would know that, okay, what they're saying is that we have an African liberation movement here. Nobody is talking about taking away anything from the African liberation movement. And all these people leveling these criticisms, I've done more for African people in 5 minutes than you've done your whole damn life. You have never put your life on the line for nothing other than to buy a pizza at the pizza parlor so you can shove that in your mouth and fart it out. That's the only sacrifices you've ever made in your damn life. And you're going to sit here and tell me and us, those of us who sacrifice it. I'm sorry, Shakur, but I mean, it's the truth. Damn, I mean, you know, you don't sit there behind your computer and talk to some people about they don't know what they're talking about, and you sitting there farting out the pizza you push somebody out the way to buy, and that's the only hard work you've done your whole goddamn life. I mean, come on now. Let's get real in 2024 and beyond, right? Like what we're saying is not that we're perfect, not that we're doing everything right. We make all kind of errors. I make errors every day in this work. Every single damn day I make an error in this work. Every day. And we'll continue to do it. And you know what? I'm not worried about it because the only way, as Amit Secretary told us, the only people who don't make errors are people that don't do anything, right? So I live that philosophy to heart. And I have no problem putting myself out there and making an effort to try to address what needs to be addressed. And oftentimes when you do that, you're gonna make mistakes. But I don't mind that. Whereas a lot of people will never put themselves out there because they don't want to get criticized. But they're so good at criticizing everyone else. So this is what we have to address, you all. This is the kind of thing that we need to change because we are simply saying that everyone out here has a contribution to make. Everybody out here has a contribution. There is not one person out here that cannot make a contribution. One of the young comrades in the A-APRP messaged me and said, well, what takeaways, or I'm sorry, what kind of technical skills do we need in the A-APRP? And I wrote him back everything. And they said, well, I got some people. I'll try to see what I can do. That's the kind of spirit that we need. Not just listening to that and then just going to get that damn pizza and forgetting about it and not doing anything to help with the struggle. That's not what we need. I mean, at some point, you become a part of the problem. You really do. You become a part of the problem. And as our movement gets stronger, we're going to remember the people who didn't help to make this work move along faster. We're going to remember you. And history is not going to treat you well, as it shouldn't. You know, because some of us walking around out here, it's roaches out here that have more value than you do right now. You know, it's roaches out here that have more value, because if I saw a roach crawling, I'm still working on it if I see them in my house. I admit, that's a weakness. I'm not there yet. But if I see one outside, I'm not going to bother them because they are existing on the planet. They have a right to exist and do whatever it is they do. I don't really know what they do, but whatever it is, that they have a right to do that. But some of us walking around, we have forfeited that right. Some of us human beings, because we have contributed nothing to humanity, nothing other than running our mouth and putting toxic oxygen into the atmosphere. That's all we've done. So what we're saying is that as a takeaway for this weekend, African Liberation Day, it's like any event organized by any formation committed to revolutionary work. It always has to be seen as a part of a large process. So we don't have events within the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. Every event we have is a part of a process, as I explained. So African Liberation Day, it's not over. It's just getting started. Now the real work begins, as I said before. So when you're a revolutionary organizer, that's how you look at it. Every event that we do, it's the same. Once the event is over, the real work begins. Every event that we do, that's the same process. For all the events we do all over the world. Like for myself, I've done probably about 15 or 20 events throughout the year where I've done A-APRP work. And the event, after it's over, that's where the real work begins. Even teaching self-defense moves to the young people at these pro-Palestine encampments. I'm scoping out any African that's there. I'm talking to them about the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And I'm talking to them and I'm getting information and I'm following up with them. It's a lot of work. Like people always tell me, oh, you're a great speaker. And I appreciate that. You know, I've heard that all weekend from the Africa Stream thing, from the our webinar Friday from yesterday. I've heard it all weekend and I appreciate it. But people have to understand, like they say it to you like you just have some sort of gift. And there's no gifts. This is struggle, you all. So I was talking on the ride back from Oakland yesterday that, you know, I hate Spike Lee's Malcolm X movie. I think it's a piece of trash. And we've talked about that a lot before. You can look at that if you want to understand why I'm saying that. But one of the things that the movie did show is when Malcolm X first joined the Nation of Islam, he was on the streets talking to our people. And that is the work, you all. I'm telling you, that is the work. And you have no idea how much of that kind of work that I've done over the years. I don't have to do that as much anymore because people call me and want me to come talk to them now. But all of that is only the result of all of those years of doing that work. Standing on the street. When you come by, I'm talking to you. You don't stop. You keep walking. I walk with you. I'm handing you literature. I'm talking to you. 9 out of 10 times, you don't want to have nothing to do with me and what I'm talking about. But that one person will stop and I'll get their phone number and their email address and I'll follow up. And then I'll do it again. Talk to 10 more people, one person. And by the time the day is over, I've got 5 or 6 people I can follow up with. And that's how we build capacity. But the problem is that today, most of us are so fragile. You know, the minute one person rejects us, we break apart. We can't handle it. You know, we got to go. We talk to one person and they say, well, I don't know if I'm interested. And we got to leave. We can't do it no more. I mean, that's why we can't make no progress. You got to get stronger, y'all. Do whatever you need to do to get stronger. Because that's the work. If you can't do that, you can't do the work. It's just that simple. Because that's what the work looks like. And the people that we're fighting against, they understand that. Look at the capitalist system. They're already thinking right now. It's June, it's May right now. You don't think they're thinking about Christmas? What products they're going to put out for Christmas? They don't wait until December 1st to start doing that. They have this garbage out around Halloween. But they don't start at Halloween. They've started already. They've been started. They probably started on December 26th. Okay, this is what next year is going to look like. Here's our assessment of December 25th, 2023. Let's talk about this meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. December 26th, 2023, of what December 25th, 2024 is going to look like. And they start brainstorming and they start planning. We need a product. This product did reasonably well, but if we created something that did this, it would probably escalate on the sales. And this is a plan we can do to get it in this many more stores. And this is how we can have a commercial that can have this message that can reach this many people. That's how they plan, you all. That's how the capitalists plan. They don't do like we do. They don't wait till 11 o'clock on December 24th. I want to know if you was gonna be doing Christmas tomorrow, and if we could try to put some products out there. It's gonna be Christmas in 45 minutes, so call me back. We don't have a lot of time. They don't do that. They do not do that. And if we want to defeat them, we have got to step up our game. So instead of us sitting around waiting for somebody to call us, waiting for somebody to come get us, waiting for somebody to inspire us, why don't you be an inspiration to someone? You have the skills to be an inspiration. You have the ability to do this work. Stop listening to these bourgeoisie lies. There is nothing wrong. There is only one thing wrong with each and every one of us. It's that we are not willing to make the sacrifices necessary to engage this work on the level it needs to be engaged. That's the only thing wrong with you. There's nothing else. There's nothing wrong with your mind. You're not any more insane than any of the rest of us. There's nothing wrong with your ability to retain information. Most of this information don't deserve to be retained. That's why you can't retain it. There's nothing wrong with how you look. You look the way you look. We're all look the way we look. Nobody's happy with how they look. We don't have to be worried about that. The problem is not how we look, it's how we manifest our existence as human beings. Because if we're engaged in a struggle for dignity, that's going to influence the energy that surrounds us. It will change not only how other people see us, but how we see ourselves. So how you look is not even an individualistic thing. Although that's how you see it, that's not what it is. So that's how we have to change our thinking. So what we're saying is that start right now. African Liberation Day is not over. The work is just beginning. So today, May 26th, what organization are you in? Do they have a political education process? What are you doing to strengthen that process? How can you step up your commitment to that process? Well, I can't do none of that. Okay, so what can you do to consistently support the people that are? Everybody, nobody can walk away from this with no responsibility. Everybody has a responsibility. I'm not even telling you what that responsibility needs to be. Don't lie. Don't leave here and lie. Well, I don't like them because they be trying to, nobody tell me how to live my life. Ain't nobody cares how you live your life. We're trying to build capacity to win this struggle. You think that if we didn't have to win this struggle for all of us, that I'd be sitting here worried about what you're doing? I don't give a damn. I'm trying to win for humanity, for future generations. This is bigger than that. Nobody care about that. I'm not trying to tell you what to control your life. You don't even control your life. Why do I want to inherit that mess? I don't want that. I just want us to be free. And organization will help us figure out how to better direct our lives. So that's all we're trying to say, you all. That's it. We have to reach a higher level of organization. And today, the day after pretty much all of the African Liberation Day programs for 2024 have concluded, is where you should make your reaffirmation about, for the remaining, what is it, 7, whatever it is, 6 months of this year, what contribution are you going, what real contribution are you going to make? Because whatever that is, you decide what it is, it'll make us stronger. I don't care who you are, what ethnicity you are, where you live, what language you speak, how your farts smell, all of that is irrelevant, you all. If you make a contribution, it'll make us stronger. You gotta just accept that and stop letting these people tell you what your value is. The people telling you don't have no value, they don't have no damn value. That's why they gotta tell you that. Nobody that feels good about themselves would tell you negative things about yourself. Nobody. So let that go. That's somebody that's not gonna contribute to anything that we need. You have a contribution to make. That's your mission. May 26th, 2024. Figure out what that is and make it. And we thank you for joining us for African Liberation Day activities all weekend. We thank you for joining us today. We invite you back next week for a long overdue program. What's happening in Haiti? What's happening in Haiti? We're going to do that next week. So we want you to join us. We still have the African Liberation Day flyers up because we love African Liberation Day. It's the only holiday that I celebrate. And today, or yesterday, May 25th, was 40 years, 40 years for me as an active organizer in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. I walked up to the table in 1984, May 25th, and signed up at African Liberation Day in 1984, May 25th, to join the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. And a lot of the people who orientated me in people who I work with, they're not even here on the planet Earth anymore. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here, but I know that that was one of the smartest decisions I've made in my life that day to do that. And as long as I am here, I'm going to continue to prove that it was a smart decision. So join us. Go to the QR code, upper left-hand corner, our Forward Ever shop. We got new stuff because I bought a shirt here. I can show it. I got it right here. I bought a shirt yesterday at African Liberation Day in Oakland, and I didn't even know existed. It says African Liberation Day forward to worldwide Pan-African unity. And then in the back, it says Africa is one continent, one people, one nation by Kwame Nkrumah. I'm gonna wear this to work Tuesday. You better believe it. I'm wearing it to work. I gotta fly somewhere, so I'm gonna wear it on the plane because you go get you one. Go to Forward Ever shop, support Hood Communist. It's an outstanding revolutionary African blog. We are so thankful that it exists. And then you wanna go to Burkina Books. We had a wonderful African Liberation Day activities in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the Thomas Sankara Center for Liberation and Pan-African Unity. So support those efforts through the QR code, and you should join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Don't half ASS it. Make a commitment. Go to www.aaprp-intl.org and get involved, you all. Get involved. And don't sit there if you're not African and say, well, he ain't talking to me, so I ain't got to do nothing. No, hell no, you need to do something more than us because, most of these communities are used to pile on white supremacy against the African community. So you got work to do in your community to understand that stop punching down and punch up at the ruling class. So if you're European and you're not organizing European people, you're part of the problem. There's no excuses. We don't want to hear it. We can tell you all the trauma in the world for what's happened to us in our lives, and we still do this work. So we don't want to hear any excuses. You need to go out and organize your communities. I just showed you, it gave you an example how you can start that by yourself. Just go out, print up something basic, and start talking to people. You don't need anybody else. What the hell are you waiting on? The pizza man to deliver that pizza? I mean, Jesus, get out and do some work. Man, this is all we need. And the more people that do this, the stronger we'll get. I don't know why that's so difficult for people to accept and understand. I really just don't get that, right? Like, stop wallowing in self-pity and get out and organize. It's time to do that. And you have the ability and the skill to do it. So don't let them tell you otherwise. Enjoy the rest of your time this day. Enjoy this Sunday or whenever you're watching. Forward ever, backwards never.